I wasn't high, wasn't wired, just clear. I knew what I needed to do and how to do it.
America is obsessed with work. On average, Americans work longer hours than other developed countries, have shorter vacations, get less in benefits, and retire later. This has little to do with needing to be productive, but with America's weird views about the need to work in and of itself. The poor need to work for survival, but contrary to most other societies, the rich in America actually work the longest average work week. These are people who choose to work when they have the privilege of taking more leisure time, but many of these people either derive their sense of identity exclusively from work or are in such competitive environments that they work longer just to stay on top. But the fixation on work and on valorizing overworking is present across the socioeconomic spectrum in America, despite it not making people happier and leading to stress, fatigue, and mental illness. Americans are obsessed with work, and their addiction is killing them. In the 1930s, economist John Maynard Keynes predicted that advancements in technology would mean that by the time his grandchildren entered the workforce, they would only have to work a 15-hour work week. As more and more of the tasks needed for humanity's survival became automated, he predicted that we'd shorten the work week to accommodate for this until nobody had to work at all. So why didn't it turn out this way? Why is America a place that's obsessed with working long, hard hours, despite the fact that it has more than enough to ensure everyone's basic necessities? Part 1. Limitless. The 2011 Bradley Cooper film, Limitless, is the purest example of America's fixation with work. It is, in some ways, a completely forgotten film. There are no hardcore Limitless fans out there, except in one specific way that we'll get into later. But the film is also the most widely known entry in a franchise that is 2 decades old and which is in constant contradiction with itself.
And you know how they say that we can only access 20% of our brain? Well, what this does? It lets you access all of it.
The trip can be intense. Usually use about 10% of your brain.
Yeah, that's a myth. Actually, that whole 10% thing. But who's to say, really?
I'll just be scratching the surface of the franchise in this video and getting into the rest of it in the next one. The premise of the movie, if you're unaware, is as follows. Eddie Mora is a single, unsuccessful writer living in New York.
What kind of guy without a drug or alcohol problem looks this way? Only a writer.
He loses his girlfriend because he's not bringing in enough money.
I was your girlfriend.
That word doesn't even begin to describe what you are to me.
Partner. Squeeze. Bank.
And he's suffering from writer's block, which is putting him behind on the rent. Then he runs into an old friend who gives him a drug called NZT. NZT is a smart pill that will radically improve his intellect. On the drug, Eddie is able to do everything he wants. He's able to finish his novel in a matter of days, he becomes charismatic and well-liked, learns languages easily, becomes an expert on any subject. In a way, the premise is very similar to a superhero film. Introduce a human character, give them a special ability, and then let the audience fantasize about what it would be like to have that power. But superhero stories are also usually basic morality tales. Spider-Man's famous phrase summarizes the entire genre.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
The hero, if they are indeed a hero, must use their power to do good in the world. Whatever they do tells the audience what the movie believes is moral. So what does Eddie Mora do when given the ability to do anything? He tries to get rich on the stock market. Part 2. Neoliberalism. The story of Eddie Mora is the ultimate fantasy of a neoliberal society. Neoliberalism is an ideology that took over Western economies around the 1980s. The idea is that government should stay out of the marketplace as much as possible. It should be a free market with very little regulation. If you just take the reins off of capitalism, it'll do wonders. Thus, every individual is free to rise or fall within the system according to their merits. That's the sales pitch for the ideology anyway. It hasn't really worked out like that. Turns out, if you remove government regulations, then larger corporations have a greater ability to exploit people in precarious positions. So when people in those positions don't quote-unquote succeed, it's not really their fault, is it? They didn't have a fair chance. But you see, neoliberalism presents itself as a moral system. It has its roots deeply embedded in the Protestant work ethic, which believes that there is inherent virtue in working hard. If you work hard, you will get into heaven. Neoliberalism doesn't have a religious quality to it, at least not explicitly, but it's a clear assumption in the ideology. The good, hard-working people will be rewarded, while those who fail only have themselves to blame. In this ideological framework, the person everyone wants to be is Eddie Mora. At the beginning of the movie, Eddie is poor, and there's this sense that he hasn't fulfilled his potential. He believes that he is unjustly at the bottom of society and that he should be in a better place. Then that belief is validated by taking the pill. He becomes the person with the most merit in a system that markets itself on being a meritocracy. And in the movie, the system works. It rewards smart, hard-working people. You see, you're wrong to feel that your place in life is unjust because clearly it would reward you if you had a 4-digit IQ too. It's reasonable to come away from the film with this idea because Eddie is never punished by the story. Early on in the film, when on NZT, Eddie rattles off an analogy which seems to predict his own eventual downfall.
We're wired to overreach. Look at history, all the countries that ever ruled the world. Portugal with its big, massive navy. All they got now are saw cod and cheap condoms. The Brits, now they're just sitting on their dank little island fussing over their suits. No one's stopping and thinking, hey, we're doing pretty well. We got France, we got Poland, we got a big Swiss bank account. You know what? Let's not invade Russia in the winter. Let's go home, let's pop a beer, and let's live off the interest. Yeah.
This guy nods his head, so you know it's true. So, okay. It's human nature to be reckless and expansionistic, which leads to bad outcomes. That's what the movie says, but then in the story, he just keeps winning. At the climax, he's attacked by the Russian mob, who are also after the pill, and he kills all of his attackers. Then, in an epilogue, everything has worked out for him. He's become an author, he's rich, he's running for office, he's getting all the benefits of the drug with none of the side effects, and he's with his girlfriend again. There's a little bit of a standoff with Robert De Niro's character, Carl Van Loon, but it falls flat. His conflict with Van Loon should have been the focus of the story rather than the silly Russian mob subplot, so having them argue here just feels like they're describing what would have happened if the movie had decided to have another act.
Blank checks from Dubai, dumping in Chile, disappeared officials. I mean, you shed a spotlight.
You want to go to war with me? There's no way you can be making accusations like that and be walking around alive.
But you would even think that shows me how unprepared you are to fight me.
You're no longer equipped to
I may
fight
be off
me.
it. You think I'm nervous?
Now, to be clear, whether this movie is well written or not literally does not matter, like at all. What matters is that the story presented in the film is really useful to observe. With the help of the pill, Mora wins at capitalism. Neoliberalism just works out for him. He achieves the American dream, and his success confirms that other people of merit can win as well, thereby perpetuating the system. This is pretty surprising given that the book Limitless is based on has a very different ending. Part 3. Limitless. The book. The film Limitless is a somewhat faithful adaptation when it comes to the superficial details of the plot. In both, a man named Eddie Spinola in the book, is an unsuccessful writer who gets the drug, becomes a millionaire on the stock market, and briefly runs afoul of the Russian mob. But when it comes to the substance of the story, they couldn't be more different. The book is intricately tied to the era it was written.
And sent the Dow and the Nasdaq plummeting. It was the worst single-day point loss ever for both exchanges.
Published just 1 year after the dot-com crash, the story explicitly takes place in the lead-up to and fallout of the crash. Eddie even loses most of his recently acquired millions when he buys tech stocks that instantly become worthless. In contrast, the film doesn't really tell you when it takes place other than one reference to it being a down market.
In a down market, no one was making much.
Given that the film was made in 2011, it's extremely suspicious that the 2008 stock market crash isn't substituted in as a replacement for the plot function that the dot-com crash served in the book. But doing so would mean punishing Eddie, while also showing some kind of skepticism about the stock market as an institution, which is exactly what the book does. In the book, Eddie Spinola often comments on how absurd the amounts of money he's dealing with in the stock market are compared to his previous employment, and how the recklessness in the trading world is helped by the artificial game-like nature of electronic trading, which creates the dangerous sense I increasingly had that the money involved wasn't real. Of course, the money is, in a sense, real, and a crash means millions of people losing their livelihoods.
You know what I hate about fucking banking? It reduces people to numbers. Here's a number. Every 1% unemployment goes up, 40,000 people die. Did you know that?
No.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
As he continues to trade, Eddie begins to see the stock market not as just a market for stocks, but as something much greater. He calls it a template for human consciousness, a collective nervous system. But then the air is taken out of the statement by the voice of reason in the book, Carl Van Loon's teenage daughter, who argues that Eddie is deluding himself by seeing the stock market this way, and that it's just a casino that tricks innocent people into thinking they can be successful. When the market is booming, Eddie ascribes a higher moral value to it, but the truth of the matter is that he doesn't really care about any of that at all. He only cares about making more and more money. The main difference between the book and the film is the ending. In the book, Eddie Spinola continues to indulge his greed and then he burns out. He loses most of what he's gained before the side effects of the drug take their toll on him, likely leading to his death. All of this makes the book a cautionary tale, and the social critiques of the story are clear. In the modern era, many of us feel disconnected and disillusioned with capitalism and our inability to escape it or find a meaningful place within it. We fantasize about having more resources so that we can take control of our lives. In free market economies, the purported idea is that the smartest people will rise to the top. This book explores if that were true, if you could actually be smart enough to outwit everyone else and make as much money as you like. And then it concludes with the idea that doing so is self-destructive, that greed will backfire on you, and that society's obsession with money is a kind of collective insanity that is reckless and harmful. The book is terrified that we've handed the welfare of society over to the unpredictable Frankenstein monster that is the stock market. The movie treats the stock market as a quick pit stop between poverty and a life of luxury with no downsides. But the book was not a bestseller. The film, on the other hand, made $161 million at the box office off of a $27 million budget. It's orders of magnitude more successful and influential, and I think that's because it tells a more comforting story. Not a critique of neoliberal policy, but an argument for it. It's no wonder so many people walked away from the movie thinking, I'd like to be like that Eddie Mora guy. I wonder if there's a real pill like the one in the movie. Part 4. Nootropics. Nootropics is a blanket term for drugs which claim to improve cognitive function. Limitless did not invent these kind of drugs. They've existed for a long time, and there's even a joke in the book about their prevalence. But the film version of Limitless helped ignite more interest in the idea of a real drug like the one seen in the movie, or at least the movie provided a convenient way for these supplements to market themselves. Today, the nootropics industry is worth $5 billion in the States and is estimated to reach $10.7 billion by 2025. They're sold mostly as supplements, which means they are not heavily regulated. While the FDA requires that all pharmaceuticals be thoroughly tested in humans, that they contain whatever ingredients are listed on the label, and that they have evidence to back their marketing claims, the same isn't true for dietary supplements. Nootropics can be sold without having to prove that they are effective or that they are safe. And for most of them, there just isn't much compelling evidence to support the claims that they can improve memory, focus, or other aspects of cognition. That's not even getting into the potential side effects of the drugs or the fact that experts suggest that the safest way to improve memory and cognition decline is to just get some exercise. But the mere existence and popularity of drugs like this is just another symptom of America's work obsession. In a society so obsessed with work, nootropics are a thriving industry. No one is taking them because they just want to get some more summer reading done. They're taking them to be more productive so they can make more money. The consumer considers it an investment. In the year the film came out, an Alzheimer's researcher and a neurologist criticized the booming nootropics industry, blaming the popularity of the drugs on neoliberal political systems, saying that they foster the concept of the atomistic individual within the marketplace who makes himself whole. Whereas previous economic systems fostered community, now we're told that it's up to us as individuals to make ourselves into something. And the pressure of that causes many to reach out to solutions of dubious merits. Our obsession with becoming someone like Eddie Mora is the fuel that leads to overwork, burnout, and in the case of nootropics, any number of health problems. Today, this compulsion to stay productive at all times is literally getting thousands of Americans killed. It's a critical piece of an ideology that has led to insane decision-making from the Trump administration and Republicans across the country. It's an ideology that demands people put themselves in harm's way during a global pandemic in order to somehow earn the right to deserve the resources to live. America could have instituted a real lockdown to get the virus under control, but doing so would mean abandoning the way the country views use work. It'd mean abandoning neoliberalism. I think the numbers speak for themselves on what America should have done. You shouldn't have to take a smart pill to be able to compete in the workforce, and you shouldn't have to work in a pandemic in order to be able to survive. So, what can fix this? Well, a lot of rich people see the problems with the system and think of themselves as the potential solutions to the problem. We'll take a look at that next time.
Time somebody shook up the free world and got things done.
So I just watched a movie called Wonders in the Suburbs, which is sort of the opposite of Limitless. It's an absurdist French comedy from last year about the lefty mayor of a small town who tries to implement a bunch of off-the-wall ideas like nap time for adults. Wouldn't that be nice? If you want to check it out, you can do so on Mubi, the sponsor of this video. Mubi is a great streaming service that focuses on independent and international films, the stuff you usually wouldn't get to see otherwise. Mubi is a curated platform. There's a new hand-picked film added every day, as well as posts from Mubi curators explaining why each film was chosen. Films are often chosen as part of a themed group or a special, like the current one on New Brazilian Cinema, which gives the platform a film festival feel. Speaking of film festivals, Mubi also has exclusive online premieres of new releases straight from the festival circuit, which is pretty neat. You can get a 1-month subscription to Mubi for free when you go to mubi.com/justright. So liven up your quarantine with some great independent films and let me know what you watch in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone, and a big thank you to my patrons on Patreon. If you enjoyed the video and you want to help me keep making them or make them better, then please consider heading over to Patreon and pitching in as little as $1 per video. Keep writing, everyone.